Hello everyone and welcome to The Build Show. I'm John Peitzman, JP, certified high performance coach and creator of the Build Framework. I work with individuals and teams all over the world to help them thrive in their personal and professional lives. And as your host on this show, our aim is to help to transform lives one guest at a time. And we do that by having amazing guests. And today is no different. We have with us George Hawwa. George is the growth director and founder of the award-winning social media agency Attention Experts, serving clients across 20 industries. He also oversees the current research division, collecting and managing data on the latest digital marketing trends and strategies. George started Attention Experts after successfully starting, building, and selling two multi-million-dollar businesses using social media. So it's no surprise that he is a sought-after keynote speaker and presenter for industry groups and in-house training and education on the topic of social media. This is going to be a great conversation. I'm so glad to have him with us here today. George, welcome to the Build Show.
Thanks, John. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And what else about your story that I didn't cover in that introduction would you like to share?
Well, I guess, you did a great job there sort of encapsulating the last 4 years.
Yeah.
I think something that surprises a lot of people is that I started in investment banking as a currency trader.
Right.
And how it somehow ended up in social media. So that part of my story, a lot of people don't know about.
Right.
I'm more analytical than I am creative.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Yeah, so it's bringing kind of the best of both worlds into one place.
Absolutely.
Amazing. And what are you excited most about in this kind of next chapter of your life, having gotten to where you are today?
Yeah, look, my purpose at Attention Experts is to help business owners navigate this new channel that people don't know much about in marketing, which is social media.
Right.
And it's always changing. So my purpose really is to help as many business owners as possible promote their products and services through what I believe to be the best marketing channel there is available.
And you figured it out because you obviously started, built, and then sold your businesses prior to this company using social media.
Yes.
Right? And was that your plan to actually build them and sell them, or did that just kind of manifest?
Yeah, definitely manifested.
Right.
The first business was a fashion label. If you look at me, I'm not exactly a fashion
Come on,
designer.
you're looking good.
I'm not the best person in terms of fashion knowledge, but my mate, he launched a fashion label in the US and it did successfully, really well successfully in terms of penetrating that market, which is very competitive over there. And now it's worn by some of the biggest celebrities in the world. And I wanted an exit, so I got out of that in 2012. And the next business, which was the business that I started on social media, was Amaze Tea, which was a herbal tea company.
Right, amazing.
Yeah, it was the world's first workout tea. You take it to the gym. And I come from a rugby background, so I hated taking chemical-based workout drinks.
Right.
So I came up with a natural drink you take to the gym and can help with all the same things. So, that ended up becoming really bigger than I ever thought it would. And I ended up getting an offer to be bought out, so I took it.
And in both cases, it sounds like social media was the catalyst that actually made that happen.
Absolutely, yeah. Right. So with the fashion label Daniel Patrick, we started an Instagram account when we got Usher to wear one of our jackets, and we needed a channel to tell everyone about it. So we got it on Instagram and Facebook, and that's when I found the true power of brand building on social media.
Right.
And then with Amaze Tea, that's where I really built or implemented a lot of my analytical skills in terms of how to get ahead of our competition using a lot of the data that we're getting from the market.
Right, amazing. Well, I would love to have a further conversation about how it relates to the Build Framework. So let's just walk through the Build Framework as we do. For those of you who don't yet know what Build is all about, it's an acronym. It stands for Build Relationships, Understand the Business, Implement Strategies, Lead and Inspire, and Deliver Excellence. And what I love about this show is that even though the Build Framework is consistent, the guests all have unique stories and experiences that relate to their journey with Build and their success. So if we start with building relationships, the B first, what are some pivotal relationships in your journey that you'd like to share with our listeners here today?
Absolutely. So I guess the relationships with, well, firstly, you've got a relationship with the market. Yes. Which is a very, it's quite a broad relationship, isn't it? And very generalized at times, but how do you simplify that and understand that? Then when you start building a business and you start getting employees, what's the relationship you need to manifest there as well and understand, and actually build that as well. So not only the market, but staff.
So kind of external and internal in a way, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And then you've got clients. Currently as an agency, we're managing over 100 clients at once.
Right, across 20 industries,
that's
right?
That's right,
wow.
Yeah. So how do we keep those relationships going at the highest level? One of the biggest pain points in our industry is customer service. And we were able to identify that through surveying our clients and the market. And so building relationships is a massive thing.
Right. And how about in your personal journey of life? I mean, is there one relationship that you kind of remember that was a catalyst or a sliding door moment or something that really changed everything?
Well, that's a personal question. That definitely, I think, you could look at, past relationships in terms of girlfriends, I guess, right. Or friends. I think the biggest for me was my first job that I got out of. I was at university and I wanted to go get a job in the industry, and I was studying economics. And I was like, okay, I actually just want to be a trader.
Right.
And I applied for this job at Macquarie Bank, which it's everyone knows that
right.
business.
Prestigious and the rest of it.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to get the job. There was 400 applicants for the role, and I was 19. I was the only one that hadn't graduated, and they picked me. And I was like,
right.
It was like a bit confronting, and it was sort of like a pilot being behind the cockpit on my first day at work.
Here you go. Good luck.
Yeah, I'm like in front of all the screens. This is what the movies say it's like.
Right.
Everyone's on the phones, and it was very exciting. But at the same time, it was very confronting because there was a high expectation. And the reason why they picked me is because they had actually turned over staff in my position before that every 2 weeks. So they didn't want to go with a graduate. They wanted to try someone different this time. That's why I got the role. It's just at the right time going for this interview. So, I lasted, I ended up staying there for 12 months before I resigned and started a business.
It's a lot longer than 2 weeks.
That's right. And a lot of the relationships I had really showed me, what it takes to be a performer. A lot of the people around me were the best in the industry in this country. Right. So I saw those personality types, some of them not so good, some good, and I really took the ones I didn't want. And you
learned from both though, right?
I learned from both. Yeah. The ones I didn't want to be, that's why I ended up resigning. I saw a culture that I didn't like, but I took the positives as well, and I ended up building businesses based on some of those learnings.
Right, awesome, great story. How about moving on to you, which is understand the business. Obviously you have a lot of understandings of the business and of your life and the rest of it. What are some pearls of wisdom from the understanding the business aspect that you'd like to share with the listeners today?
Oh yeah, well, objectiveness is key in any moment. So being as objective in present time as possible is probably the one thing I've learned over the years, and you're continually mastering that all the time. So being simple in the way you look at things, taking the emotion out, looking at the fact-based.
Don't overcomplicate it.
That's right.
Don't have wishful thinking and all the rest of it.
That's right. I was talking to a staff member before I came here, a pretty important meeting, and I really had to break down the objectives and look at that over the emotion and tackle that and park the emotion, right? And just be in present time with the person. Just be there to solve whatever problems I'm trying to solve, right? That's probably the biggest, because if I can look at things that way, I can build on top of that. Another thing as well is it helps with statistically putting everything together and understanding, where we're at actually right now, and also just being personable in your approach to business. And it's something you've put in your book, really doing things by the heart, being personable, be someone that is genuine. They're the traits that people want to do business with, as well as want to be employed by. So,
I love that balance. So be objective and kind of tactical, but also authentic.
Yeah, that's right.
And connected from the heart.
Absolutely. You got to identify those two times. There's times where you have to be very objective, but sometimes your staff or clients, and we're seen much more than a social media agency a lot of time. Sometimes our clients, without them saying it, have got cash flow problems, got staff problems.
Sure.
And
yet their face to the market is that they're totally fine, A-OK, nothing's wrong, and they can't make payroll.
Right. But then when I sit down with them in meetings, I can identify these things because I've been through a lot of those experiences myself, and that's when that genuineness comes in, where you actually are there to help them. You're not there to serve yourself, you're there to help the person.
Which leads nicely into implement strategies. So what are some strategies that you think are the most effective to share with our listeners today that you've maybe implemented yourself over the years?
Well, from an organisational viewpoint, and to build fast business and be able to scale, you definitely need organisation in place in terms of management structure or management system that you know you're going to use when you're a one-man band.
Yes.
So you need to have that understanding before you go into employing more people, because what will happen is you'll just run very chaotically, it won't be streamlined, and people will become very disheartened with processes and the way you run things.
Right.
So making sure you have a system that you're ready to go with and a structure, that's definitely one strategy for a startup perspective. If you've got an established business, the strategy is always outflow, right? That should be your number one objective no matter what you do, and that's something we've built in at Attention Experts from myself all the way down to our entry-level staff that are just working on campaigns in terms of content. You're always outflowing. What that means is you're always pushing communication out of the business.
Right.
To clients, to new prospects, to the market.
So adding value.
Always adding value. And our business cultural values is value, ownership, selfless, hire, and then once we have those things, we can have fun. So always adding value, not just in business and at work, but in every aspect of your life, outflowing. Look that way, not this way.
Right, great.
Yep.
And speaking of all aspects of your life, so if you go to kind of the personal side of things, because as you know, Build is about personal and professional growth, right? You can't have one without the other, right?
Yep.
On the personal side of things, what are some strategies that you implement personally, if I can ask, that help to tie everything or integrate everything together in your life?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess looking at my life personally, I try to be as ethical as possible. I'm always very, very conscientious of my impact on not just myself, but my relationships, my community, mankind, the environment, and so on. So always being ethical is something I always make sure I administer in my own life. Right. And I have my own systems to keep that in check, because not everyone's perfect. So if I have done something wrong, how do I take responsibility for it? What do I do? It could be something as small as, the kitchen, the wife's asked me to pack away the dishes, I didn't do it. So how do I take responsibility for that when I get home? Because now there's an upset there I have to deal with. Yes. To being out in the community.
That doesn't sound like a hypothetical.
It's very common. But it's getting better. And then being out in the community, being what type of person am I? And was I a bad person at waiting for the coffee the other day impatiently, or at a community event, and how am I impacting people around me?
So some of that is reflective then too, because to know that you must actually ask yourself the question, how was I? Right? So is that part of your process that you have built in?
It's the ownership, yeah. I'm responsible for everything.
Right.
Everything that happens to me, I'm responsible for.
Right.
Personally, in my community, in my relationships, everywhere, I'm responsible for it.
Right. Love that. And perfect segue to L, which is lead and inspire. So how do you, other than what we just talked about, ensure that you lead and inspire every day?
Well, I guess, I'm always looking for feedback on my leadership, because you can't really introvert on that, I guess. So, so I just do it without thinking, and I just take what I feel is the most authentic route, and just do it without second guessing. But I'm always looking for feedback. That way I can have a reflection or soundboard on, did that land well, and so on, in terms of my leadership, not just in business, but personally as well. So
you're not in a bubble just kind of trying to figure it all out.
No, I just go. And I think that's one of the biggest, what I've learned over the last 15, 16 years in my professional life, is the biggest thing that holds back leaders is not being able to make decisions.
Right.
Right. So being a leader means making decisions. It doesn't matter what type of decision it is, make the decision.
Right, and then move and act, right?
And move and act, yeah. And then discover what happens, right?
Yep.
But at least people have something to go off. Like, make a decision, go. come up with solutions. That's your job as a leader. So that's what I try to do, and then obviously lead by example with whatever decisions I make.
Yeah, love that. And then finally, D is for deliver excellence, obviously. So what does excellence mean to you, and how do you deliver excellence every day?
Yeah, excellence for me is about having benchmarks in statistics.
It's very quantifiable.
I'm very quantifiable. I've got that economics background, mathematics background.
I love that.
So excellence for me is, okay, what's that benchmark? Let's beat it. And always moving the bar higher again and again. So if I can continue to do that, I'm going to keep achieving new realms of excellence that I didn't think was possible. Right. So just continually do that.
And that applies personally and professionally as well, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I had a back injury 5-6 years ago, and I used to be very, very, active as a person, and I put on a bunch of weight. And now I'm back into, how do I get fit again? How do I do all that? After a lot of rehabilitation. So in my personal life right now, that's one of my key things is, okay, where's the benchmark now?
Right.
And I've got that every day, and I measure that every day. So there's a few things I track at the moment, and I'm trying to beat that every day. And they're just little things. They're not like trying to set the bar this much higher. It's just on a gradient.
Step at a time.
Yeah, that's right.
That's great. Are there any other words of wisdom or pearls of wisdom that you would like to share with our listeners today that you didn't already share?
I think, look, I've already talked about ethics, and I believe ethics is the route to survival in business, in your personal life, and I don't want to sound righteous or anything like that. Everyone's got their own way of implementing ethics. You see some, people that do it through religion, some people do it through their own personal philosophies, but ethics is the big one, because what I've found has led to success in business is ethics. And what's led to success in my personal life, finding my wife, having great friends, fantastic family around me, is making sure I'm ethical with them as well. So yeah.
And when you look in the mirror at night, you know one way or the other.
That's right.
It doesn't matter what other people think or know or whatever. It's like ethics is a thing that is in the heart, and the truth is the truth.
That 100%, and being able to confront that is part of being ethical. Right. And you're not always going to be perfect. You will make mistakes. You will do things wrong. You'll make decisions that, won't always side with your ethics sometimes in the heat of the moment. But how do you take responsibility for that? And you should have a system in place for that. Right. Being able to overcome some things that you've done or whatever, having that in place and being able to take responsibility, I think that is the biggest thing. That's probably the one mantra I've got that's been with me for a long time.
Awesome. How can people get a hold of you if they want to have further conversations?
Yeah, visit us at attentionexperts.com. If you'd like some help with your social media, book in a consultation. If they want to get in touch with me personally, just reach out, george@attentionexperts.com, and they can reach out with a personal email. I'm happy to take as many as possible because I'm outflowing.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Appreciate it.
Thank all of you for joining us here as well. For more great resources to help you become your best self, including free worksheets and downloads, make sure to check out thebuildframework.com. That's it for this episode. I'm JP. We'll see you next time on The Build Show.